Right. Hold your breath, cross your fingers, but we seem to be tiptoeing closer to a deal between Israel and Hamas to end the Gaza horror, where 45,000 people have now been killed. There are reports that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is heading for Cairo, possibly to sign a deal arranged in Qatar. But all of that is very hard to confirm and might be untrue. The outlines of a possible peace deal are clear enough. The staged release of hostages and the similarly staged withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza. But will any of this actually happen? Let's speak now to the Jerusalem-based journalist Noga Tarnopolsky. Noga, thank you very much indeed for joining me. What is the rumour? What is the conversation in Jerusalem tonight about this possible deal?
Good evening, Andrew. Well, I hate to be the heartbreaker of this story, but I don't have any good news to share. The rumors that you mentioned about the Prime Minister possibly flying to Cairo actually appeared in Reuters earlier today, and they seem to have been even maybe intentional misdirection on the part of Israeli sources speaking with the news agency. The fact of the matter is that Netanyahu skipped his own trial today. He's on trial for corruption, telling the judges he had a national security emergency he had to handle. The judges accepted this. And in the end, he held a sort of PR event on a summit of the Mount Hermon military base on Syrian territory in what appears to be at the same time a provocation to the new leaders in Syria, possibly also to their Turkish sponsors, certainly to all the European diplomats who are now trying to gauge whether or not this new Syrian leadership can be taken seriously. And at the same time, this whole day of kind of savage rumors swirling around, tormenting the families of hostages, have served Netanyahu, who wanted to have Israelis forget for a bit that his government is teetering, that his support is about at 18%, and that he remains on trial. So it was a very murky day without good results. The latest we're hearing in Jerusalem just in the last hour are Israeli officials saying that there's still, quote, significant gaps in the negotiations.
Well, talk about emptying an ice-cold bucket of water over tiny little embers of hope here, because even people from the Hamas side had suggested this was possibly going to happen. We're going to be talking in a moment, actually, about what's going on in Syria. But you think this is, from what you're saying, this is an entirely cynical piece of news management. There's nothing in it.
Well, the news of Netanyahu's supposed trip to Cairo was either cynical or an honest mistake on the part of the Reuters news agency. But, you know, Netanyahu's spokesperson took several hours before he denied it. So there is a sense that the government was happy to let this rumor float. There were any number of rumors. I won't tire you with all of them. But basically what you have in Israel is a frightened population, scared this war will go on forever, no end in sight, and the Prime Minister racing to this sort of victory summit in the north, basically to say we now have an eighth front to this war. He said in Hebrew today that Israel will stay indefinitely on this piece of Syrian territory, quote, until security arrangements are to Israel's satisfaction, without defining what that may be. And this is in complete and total contradiction to what he said just days ago in English, when he promised the world that Israel was taking purely defensive positions on the Syrian buffer zone and that these were completely temporary.
Well, Noga, I was hoping for some slightly better news, but you have disabused me very eloquently. But thank you very, very much indeed for that, nevertheless. Now, talking about the front next door, as it were, let's go to Syria and look at Syria after this revolution, with the Israelis, of course, already inside the country. Can Syria hold together? Is it in the hands of a relative moderate now, or of terrorists? And here the news is a bit better, not worse. The head of the group which ousted the dictator Assad, Mohammed al-Jolani, now using his birth name of Ahmed al-Shara, said he wanted to disband all the rebel groups and absorb them into a single Syrian national army, which would keep this multi-ethnic and multi-faith country together. Syria must remain united, he said, and there must be a social contract between the state and all religions religions there to guarantee social justice. Now, he has promised, whatever Netanyahu has just said, that Syria under him will not be used as a launch pad for attacks against Israel. Now, these are, I think, genuinely fine words, but can he be trusted? Let's talk next to Amar Abdul Hamid, an anti-Assad Syrian who has been living in exile in Washington, D.C., and is co-founder of the pro-democracy Thawa Foundation. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Can I ask you, first of all, straightforwardly, what you think about al-Jolani and whether you trust these, as I say, very strong and very encouraging words we've been hearing from him?
Well, I mean, trust but verify. This is basically the motto moving on. I mean, it's hard to imagine that an Islamist group will go all the way and moderate itself from being an affiliate with ISIS to Al-Qaeda to basically cracking down on pro-democracy activists in the Idlib region where they had control, to now wanting to be sort of this voice of pragmatism and willingness to address all communities. But I'm encouraged by this statement. I just want to have more formal arrangements appearing very soon so that the trust is built on solid foundations and not simply on promises. So guarded optimism really is how I feel. But we need to keep our eyes on the ball, and we need to realize that we are still in this space where there is nothing formal. I remember when 79, when Khomeini went to Tehran, he was a pragmatist for about 4 years, and then he imposed the Chador in 1983 on all Iranian women. We don't want to see a repeat of that scenario. We want this pragmatism to be real, and that's why we need to have proper arrangement right now installed, contracts, a constitution, discussion over governance that can actually lead us to trust the system in a clear way.
And so on a lot of that already, Mr. al-Jolani has been saying the right things, at least, as I said, in terms of protecting journalism and protecting the rights of women in Syria and trying to hold the country together. But to what extent do you think Israeli provocation and the use of massive bombs and shells against Syria at this moment, a kind of opportunistic aggression by Israel, is likely to destabilize the new regime and turn things backwards?
Well, this is basically where I'm hoping that Israel will also take a step back. I mean, and realize that they had genuine concerns, like everyone else, over the nature of the new government emerging in Damascus. But at the same time, they cannot, make their worst scenarios come true, their nightmares come true by keeping up with this bombing campaign. After all, al-Jolani had made a number of statements that are encouraging. But I think at one point, what would really help ease the situation, ease tensions, is if there is a direct kind of negotiations, a meeting somewhere between Syrian and Israeli negotiators in order to sort of play down the Israeli concerns and reach some kind of an arrangement. And leading up to the evacuation of Israeli troops from the new territories that they have acquired.
As long as the Israeli position is honourable and straightforward, that would be the case. Now, Amar, you know your country very well. To what extent do you think this area of land, with the Druze and the different kinds of Muslim groups and some Christians and all the rest of it, and the different tribal groupings, can it be kept together? Is that a possible job?
A few months ago, in fact, a few weeks ago, I would have said only a loose confederal structure would have kept this country together. But seeing how quickly Assad forces retreated and how quickly HTS moved into enclaves like Latakia and Tartus and were welcomed by the people, even Assad's birthplace was where they were welcomed by the people, I think we are heading in the right direction in the sense that there will be some kind of a light centralization again of the country, and this will protect it from further fractures. The real question is not really the Druze or even the Alawite at this stage, but the Kurds, because the main backers of HTS, the Turkey, have really a strong line on the Kurdish question. And if the current conflict kept intensifying, this could endanger the stability of Syria.
And of course, as I said at the beginning, you're in Washington as an anti-Assad dissident, and we have people like you in London and around Paris and around the world, of course. At what point do you think that organisations like yours are going to be able to go back into Syria and meet face to face with the new government and make your own assessment of what they're really like and where they're taking Syria?
Well, I'm hoping soon. I'm hoping to go to the country shortly after the New Year's Eve and, see for myself and assess the situation on the ground for myself. I have concerns, but I also have reasons for optimism. And I have friends who already went there, and they sort of report a mix of things. So we really need to see what's happening on the ground, and I'm hoping that soon I will get clarity on that.
Abdul Mohammed, when you've been over there and you've sniffed the air and you've taken the temperature, do please come back and talk to us and tell us what you find. But for now, thank you very much indeed for talking to LBC.